Hello friends, this guy is the owner of the most useless and shameful talent in the world. Because of a small peculiarity, the family, classmates, and even all adults turned away from the boy. But how much they changed their minds when Patrick turned out to be the only hope of the whole country. One day, somewhere in the UK, a very unusual child, Patrick Smash, is born to an ordinary married couple. He begins to surprise others literally from the first second of his life. While taking a family photo, the baby accidentally farted. But if it was an isolated embarrassment? No, the child turns the parent's life into a real nightmare. At night they wake up not from his crying, but from the deafening volleys of his intestines. This is not to mention the aroma that hovers in their house instead of the smell of fresh pastries and warm milk. It's impossible to get used to this, so Patrick's father decides to follow in the footsteps of great inventors and comes up with devices that can save his family from torment. However, not all of his ideas are combined with real life. Tired of unsuccessful attempts to return silence and fresh air to his own house, Mr. Smash leaves the family to the deafening sobs of his wife. After that, the mother begins to ignore her own son, and the sister puts all the blame on him. Patrick feels invisible until the long-awaited day finally arrives, the first trip to school, where he hopes to find friends. But, of course, everything is not going according to plan at school again, because Patrick has not learned to restrain himself. The children immediately begin to bully the poor guy, but one guy from the class doesn't care about Patrick's peculiarity at all. This is Alan, who immediately starts playing with him and accepts him for who he is. That's because Alan has his own peculiarities. From birth he does not smell at all. The guys spend all their free time together, and this is very supportive of Patrick. But still, for other classmates, he still remains the main outcast. Patrick is especially bullied by the bully Damon, who uses every opportunity to get to him. In one of these cases, the offender snatches a lunchbox from the boy and is very surprised by its contents. Inside, he saw special food that helps Patrick fart less. Because of the unusual diet, Damon begins to humiliate Patrick even more. Alan tries to stand up for him, but he does it badly. He doesn't have time to blink an eye, as he gets in the nose. After the incident, Patrick wonders why his friend speaks so strangely. He's always talking about some light years, celestial bodies, and gravitational fields, to which Alan replies that his ability to express his thoughts clearly is just one of his many talents. And all of them are necessary in order to finally achieve his cherished dream to build an aircraft that will work without using natural resources and win a local competition of inventors. Put a like if you also strive for such self-esteem. A few days later, a British celebrity, the greatest tenor John Osgood, arrives at Alan and Patrick's school. After his performance, all the children are told to stand up, and the singer makes a fiery speech. He invites the children to pray for them to find the same talent as him and to be silent for a while. But Patrick's gut has other plans. Without mincing words, Patrick's teacher calls him the most brainless creature on earth. From now on, this is the worst day of his life for him. But life goes on anyway, and he still goes to school and eats tasteless cereals for breakfast, while his sister eats beans and tomato sauce. In order to somehow distract himself, one day Patrick enthusiastically watches a broadcast about the launch of an American space rocket. He even decides to write to the U.S. Space Center and find out if his little feature will interfere with his career as an astronaut. It turns out that this is his most cherished dream. But then the commander-in-chief of the center says in an interview that a real cosmonaut is obliged to control himself 100%. Patrick is well aware that he and self-control are incompatible things, so he tears up the letter and almost abandons his idea when suddenly he thinks about the general's final words. Uniquely gifted individuals will overcome all problems. The very next day, Patrick comes to visit Kaylin with a request to help him become normal. Alan drives Patrick outside and locks himself in the garage. A friend obediently waits on the street all night while some suspicious detectives take pictures of him from a black car. The next morning, Alan finally comes out of his workshop with the coolest development of his own authorship. These are shorts that have incredible gas absorption properties. The whole secret is in a small pipe that connects to the lunchbox. All of Patrick's aerial misunderstandings are pumped right there. Now Patrick is a free and confident person. He defies all the stupid rules, and from now on this is the best day of his life for him. Patrick sincerely thanks Alan for saving him from eternal shame and decides to turn to him with another request to help find his gift. But the friend's answer amazes Patrick. Alan is sure that his friend simply does not have any gift. He doesn't even seem to realize how insulting these words sound. But in Alan's world, where the gift is to create flying machines, there are completely different ideas about talent. But friends do not have time to quarrel. The bully Damon approaches Patrick again and, as usual, decides to check what it is in his lunchbox. Protests from friends, of course, only fueled his interest. Of course, Damon can't just leave it like that. He ties Patrick to the horizontal bar ladder and sets half the school on him. Alan's invention breaks down, and its owner remains in his underpants. From stress, the rampage in his intestines takes on an unprecedented scale, and he again does not hold back. But there is one plus: the offenders are finally falling behind. Now for Patrick, this is already the worst day of his life. He decides not to go to school and stays at home, staring at the news release about the problems on the space station. Alan comes to visit the guy. He says he misses his girlfriend and fixed the thunder in his pants. But Patrick only replies that he no longer needs pants because his dream will never become a reality, especially after Alan himself declared that his friend has no talents. Alan wonders, isn't Patrick's dream to stop farting in front of everyone? Patrick said he'd like to, but it's not his dream. His dream is to be an astronaut. But Alan reacts to his friend's revelations again not as he would like. He thinks it's impossible. After all, in order to become an astronaut, you need to train a lot, pass difficult exams, and be in excellent physical shape. Patrick is offended, and Alan leaves his friend's house with smart pants, while the same suspicious dude from the black car is watching him. A couple of days later, Patrick and his mother come to the doctor, where they are informed of the shocking news. It turns out that the boy has 2 stomachs. The doctor never ceases to admire. He has never seen anything like it. According to him, Patrick, a medical phenomenon with an absolutely useless but unique gift. The kid perks up. Did someone say a gift? From now on, this day is the best in his life for him. Inspired, Patrick goes to John Osgood Music Seminary. He cannot take one treacherous high note in the next ode, but he does not yet know that a note can be taken not only by voice. Osgood tries to catch up with the guy, but Patrick runs away. A little later, Alan tells him the good news. Yes, he still has a gift, and this is his unusual stomach structure. It is this that will help the friend's device to finally fly. The day of the competition is coming. The same notorious John Osgood is preparing to give the prize to the winner, and the participants are preparing to demonstrate their ingenious developments. Their task is to fly by car at least 30 meters, but no one can cope with it. So no one believes in the 2 youngsters who performed the very last. And very wrongly. Everyone was amazed. They really did it, managed to fly in front of everyone. From now on, this is the best day of his life for Patrick. But the euphoria ends quickly. He sees Alan voluntarily getting into a suspicious black car and leaving the party without explaining anything to him. Patrick immediately goes to his friend's house to find out what's going on, but Alan is no longer there. His father only replies that his son has left for another country and will not return. Patrick can't believe that a friend could leave him like that. And yes, now it's the worst day of his life for him. He gets stuck in the news again and learns that the situation aboard the American spacecraft is regarded as critical. General Shepard admits that the astronauts, most likely, will not be able to be saved. But watching disturbing news interrupts an unexpected visit. This is John Osgood himself, and he offers Patrick to go on tour with him, because without his help he will not take the highest note. Patrick doesn't think for a second. For him, this is the only opportunity to find a beloved friend. So they travel all over the world: Paris, Sydney, Montreal, and Tokyo. Everywhere Patrick asks everyone he meets if anyone has seen Alan, but all to no avail. One day, Placido, another tenor, fraudulently enters Sir Osgood's room, whom the Briton has removed from the pedestal of the best opera singer. Suddenly, the spy finds in the room not a competitor at all, but a little boy who is busy singing at this moment. Placido starts questioning Patrick about what he's doing here, and the guy shakes up too much. Well, Placido has already prepared a plan of revenge. He adds some strange liquid to the cake on the table. It is not surprising that Patrick feels extremely bad at the performance. However, he still takes the right note, so much so that he breaks glasses, and equipment. However, there is one caveat. Naturally, the characteristic sounds bring a full hall of lovers of beauty into absolute shock. And then comes the moment of truth. Placido gets up from his seat and publicly declares that a deceiver was speaking in front of them. By an amazing coincidence, it is at this moment that what Patrick had damaged a little earlier with his deafening tirade falls down. Patrick is immediately detained, and the boys are trumpeting in all the news outlets, calling him a criminal authority who planned to ruin the best opera voice in the world. In one of the issues, Patrick turns to Alan and says that he just wanted to find a friend. The message reaches the recipient, but at this moment he is surrounded by the same suspicious people in black glasses. A couple of days pass, and now Patrick is already in court. John Osgood acts as a witness for the prosecution and blames everything on the child. Like, he closed all the doors to the tenor, and even killed his best friend. Damon claims that everyone at school was afraid of Patrick and he was always attacking other guys for no reason. The teacher swears that she has noticed real evil in Patrick's eyes for a long time. Everything speaks against the boy, and no evidence of protection is no longer able to protect him from the most terrible, merciless execution. However, everything changes in just a few moments. A car arrived and interrupted the process. It was the dude with the black glasses. It turns out that this is not some villain, but Officer Johnson from some special forces of the United States. He tells the commander of the firing squad that he wants to transfer the prisoner Patrick Smash under the jurisdiction of the United States. He asks the guy to go with them and promises that his unique talents will find their application on American soil. Of course, Patrick agrees without hesitation. Accompanied by secret agents, a recent criminal boards a plane. There he is treated like a royal person and even allocated a separate room with personal photos. However, this does not please Patrick at all. He still misses his girlfriend. A couple of hours later, Patrick is called to a meeting. He doesn't even realize that the main guest on it is Alan. But instead of rejoicing at the long-awaited meeting, Patrick chokes with resentment. How could his best friend leave him? Alan hastily explains everything. It turns out that the men in black took him out of the competition because they noticed talent in him. All this time, he has been working to save the astronauts on the broken station, but now he has reached a dead end. Right from the airport, friends go to the Space Flight Center. There Patrick is waiting for the same General Shepard, whom he recently watched on TV. He informs them that they have only a day to send a rescue rocket into space, and all hope is only for Patrick. He has to become a real astronaut. Once inside the Science Center, Patrick can't believe his eyes. He learns that children are engaged in all the developments there because adults are not good for anything. They're just looking all over the world for gifted guys and recruiting them. But now the guys have a serious problem. They designed a new internal combustion engine based on the prototype of the Miracle Boy's double stomach. However, the engine does not work as it should. It's much easier to just put Patrick inside the rocket and use his gases as fuel. Patrick can launch a rescue rocket with his gases. Patrick goes through a quick briefing and the launch hour is coming very soon. Everyone welcomes the boy as a savior and hero, and even the US president himself shakes the boy's hand. But right before takeoff, a scientist approaches General Shepard and says that he found inconsistencies in the scheme of the apparatus. With a high probability, the rocket will explode less than a minute after launch. The chance of survival is only 21%. The general immediately tells Alan about the problem, and together they call Patrick on speakerphone. A friend says that it's up to him, and he can refuse, but if he still agrees, he will become a real hero. In response, Patrick delivers a fiery speech, which is carefully listened to not only by scientists at the Space Center, but also by all his relatives, classmates, and teachers. Patrick admits that no one has ever believed in him. He could not please anyone, neither his mother, nor his peers, nor his teachers. So he will never give up the opportunity to meet the expectations of an entire country. The countdown ends. Everyone freezes in anticipation. Patrick revs with all his might. Hooray! The rocket soars into the sky. Everyone in the center is rejoicing, but the most exciting thing remains to wait for the stage to separate from the rocket. At first, the connection with the Earth is really lost, but then Alan hears that very note, and then those present realize that Patrick is alive. Against the background of his triumphant flight, Patrick says, "I'm not smart and I'm not brave, but I managed to understand what I'm not like others in. And if you are worried about some problems, think about it, maybe you will be able to benefit from them." So Patrick rescues the astronauts from the station and returns to New York a real hero. In an interview with television, he says only one thing: from now on this is the best day of his life. That's all for today. Put likes and write comments if you want more similar videos.